Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark from the United States.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Mark from the States. How are we doing today? I am doing fantastic. Hope you are as well. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out. I invite you to sit on this big fake couch today. We're going to look at the March Past from Remembrance Sunday. It's always one of those things that really gets you, seeing these men and women with the pride on their face, some with disabilities, some who are unable to really walk, family members of those who we've lost. It's moving. It's seeing all these legends, right, walk by and march past the Cenotaph to pay their respects to their fallen comrades, and it's just it's really a cool thing to see. And this is just watching it on a video. I can't imagine what it's like to be there in person. It's must be an amazing thing to see live. I get chills watching it. I get the feels, watching it from afar. But I can only imagine that everything gets ramped up seeing it in person. Probably the best thing I know is that many of you have or did do this on Sunday, the day of the event. So, to all of you who have served, are serving, whose family served, past, present, a big thank you from this little tiny part of America. I am very honored that you have allowed me into your family, and I just much respect to the British people for showing, Okay, let's get into it. Like I said, it's a long video. Stay till the end. There's something pretty cool that I've added, that I saw, that I wanted to show. So let's do it.
And the music is changing its tune as we build up and prepare for the Great March Past. And it'll be led this year by the Royal Marines, who are marking their 360th anniversary this year.
Nice.
And it is the first time, and this is special for you, Lord Stirrup, that we have the pipes and drums of the Royal Air Force.
Splendid.
The preparations for this March Past, which involves nearly 10,000 former service men and women, or those associated with armed forces organisations, or perhaps even civilian organisations, takes an enormous amount of planning. And many people help to get everyone here. There's Scotty's little friends waiting to do their March Past. And you'll recognise that each of these different organisations are marked by their own distinctive badges or insignia, and they're desperately proud to be representing those who can't be here. I'm very proud to be the ambassador for the taxi charity for military veterans known as Poppy Taxis, and they have been holding their taxis ready at all the principal London arrival points, the stations and coach stations, to bring veterans, particularly from the Second World War, who are now very old, and other conflicts, who find it difficult to get here, to make sure that they too can march past as we look at His Majesty the King's Wreath, principal as it is here at the Cenotaph. And we take a little bit of time to move the bands into position and get it ready for this moment of change. But what I think we should all bear in mind, particularly if we're in London, but no matter where you are in the United Kingdom, if after watching this you go out and see a veteran with their medals in a pub or in a location, go and talk to them.
I love that. In a pub.
And find out who they've been thinking of today and share the stories of who you've been thinking about too. So, Lord Stirrup, what you must be thinking now?
Well, I'm just reflecting, watching and listening to the wonderful pipers, that it's entirely appropriate that they should be leading off today, because the Royal Air Force, like the other two services, has always had a very strong connection with Scotland and all other parts of the United Kingdom as well. But I spent several years of my career in Scotland, living and working there. So I'm just delighted to see them there. It reflects the fact that Scotland has an important strategic role in the provision of defence for this entire United Kingdom.
Air Officer Scotland's Pipe Major, as he is leading them today, and they received a Sovereign's piping banner from His Majesty the King earlier this year at Balmoral. The third time they had played for the Sovereign there. Twice they played for Queen Elizabeth II. And I'm used to seeing them in my time as Governor of Edinburgh Castle. They regularly came to play at the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo.
Tattoo, yeah, tattoo. Everyone's gone. I love to see that there's still people out to stick around to watch. It's a long day. I get it.
And here we go for the march past of the veterans. Let's wish them well.
Hear Elizabeth Tower over there, and bells ringing.
And appropriately, the first music played, the Royal British Legion's own march by Bidgood. And the senior members of the Royal British Legion have led, and they're followed by these many columns of veterans, each of them giving their eyes left to the Cenotaph, which has at its top the idea of an empty tomb into which everyone can place their thoughts. And waiting at the side of the memorial are the wreath receivers. They take them and place them around the Cenotaph to make sure that all these memories are kept. They're great bits of music, aren't they?
And you know, when I used to take part in the Cenotaph ceremony, the 30-minute service that we just witnessed was always tremendously moving. But after that, I would always go up to one of the Foreign Office balconies and stay there for the rest of it and watch the entire march past, because it was just so stunning to see so many people coming. And of course, when you watch it on television, you just see them marching past. You don't realise how long they've been waiting and assembling. They've travelled from across the country. They spent hours getting into position, getting ready for this. And
Elaborate,
this is their moment.
Decorative. Yes, 2 poppies.
The pace is slightly slower than that used by marching bands for serving soldiers, sailors, airmen, and
I don't know,
women.
they're moving pretty quick.
That is to account for veterans who have perhaps taken a toll over their service period and go just a tad slower, but with no less vigor for remembering those they've come to recall. One of the most poignant memories just there, top left of our picture, is of the white cross of chrysanthemums placed there by the widows. And I think in its simplicity, it does recall quite how much the cost of sacrifice in a family can be.
Absolutely, and of course,
Nice.
we talk of widows and the Widows Association tremendously important, but in this modern age, of course, it's not just ladies who are next of kin. The ladies are fighting, and unfortunately, sometimes the ladies are dying as well. So we have to remember all of those who are bereaved by conflict. And of course, it's not just the widows and the husbands, it's the children, it's the brothers, the sisters, the wider family.
And we saw some of those representatives of the Normandy veterans marching past just then. It's been a busy year to remember Normandy.
It certainly has.
Sure.
It's been a year of many, many anniversaries, as you mentioned earlier during your commentary. And of course, there are going to be a great many more coming up. It's perhaps a little frightening to realize that we're not far off the centenary of the beginning of the Second World War. Thoughts will have to be turning soon in government circles to how that is commemorated.
And the music plays. It's a long way to Tipperary as we listen to an arrangement of songs that were sung by so many of the soldiers to try and keep their spirits up as they marched to the trenches in the First World War. That grisly reality of a stationary war that went on for many, many years. And perhaps I could reflect on the fact as a trustee of the Commonwealth War Graves Foundation. Anybody who gets the chance to go and visit any of the war graves around the world that are so beautifully maintained by the Commonwealth War Graves Foundation will realise, and the Commission will realise quite how valued those who have lost their lives are.
And it goes beyond that, because if you actually go to those cemeteries and you visit them and you look at the inscriptions on the crosses, it suddenly brings home to you the cost of war. You see so many names and you see so many ages 18, age 19, age 18, age 19, and you suddenly realize that these were young people who had their future ahead of them. And it was all cut short because of the sacrifice they made on behalf of the security of this country and its people. And it comes back to what I said earlier. We must remember that it's about people, it's about individuals, it's not just numbers.
I just love watching these men and women. They have a little bounce in their
With all
step.
your experience as a former
Standing
chief
a
of
little
defence
taller,
staff and chief in so many different theatres
for
and
the
roles.
brief moments they go
You know,
by
the world is not
Cenotaph.
looking pretty at the moment, and
It's
we
just like,
see the young servicemen and women
you know,
standing, holding the ground here for the veterans to go past.
it's just
Your
awesome.
thoughts about service today?
Well, I think that we should always bear in mind that famous dictum, if you want peace, prepare for war. There's no surer way of avoiding the sorts of sacrifice that we're remembering today than to deter conflict. And to deter conflict, you have to be strong and you have to be resolute. You rely upon the service of all those young men and women who are in the armed forces today. You rely on their professionalism and on their dedication to keep the country safe and to avoid war. But the only way you can be sure of avoiding war is to be ready for it.
Pensioners.
And as those great songs from previous wars are being played out by the bands, here come the in-pensioners of the Royal Hospital Chelsea. And you know, when you look at them and you see their experience and their medals,
I love
each
the
of
red
them
blankets
memories for
they
those
have.
in-pensioners, they get such a cheer.
They certainly do, and they deserve it as well. But of course, they are representative of a much wider community. When we look at them, we honour them and we remember, but we must remember what they represent, which is so many people who have given so much over so many years.
Yeah.
Oh, 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 what a lovely war. It's a great song, and of course sung by so many of these in-pensioners' predecessors as they went to the trenches, and led by the captain of invalids there, and supported by so many of their own. I love the fact that many are giving a little bit of help to the wheelchairs of their friends.
Right. Their service shows no end.
Now the bands of His Majesty's Royal Marines and of the Royal Air Force will lead us with "They'll Always Be in England." Look at the courage of that veteran, determined to keep up with his colleagues as they march away and supported by his friends. It's all about how people support each other in these veteran organisations. Lord Stirrup, you watch this and there are always things to notice.
Well, I think it's very interesting in the shots we're seeing, the veterans marching past all the currently serving who are on parade, and you see the contrast between the veterans, the older, should I say, veterans and the young serving personnel. But also it's a sign of great continuity, that tradition of service continues across so many years. I think the other thing we have to remember, and I reflect on it when you were just mentioning that particular veteran just now, that it's not just those who died, but it's also those who suffered serious physical injury. We see the example there again. There are many, many of these people throughout our society who suffer significant life-changing injuries as a result of their service. And it's incumbent upon us to remember them not just on one day a year, but through all the days of the year, and to ensure that we, as a society, support them in their ongoing struggle with their disabilities.
And we cannot know the courage and effort that he may have had to put into getting himself ready to march past with his mates.
Gosh.
And, you know, that's why this is
and he gets to hand
a
off the
wonderful
wreath,
gathering
too.
for those who have served. And you and I have to be back with the people who you don't
That's
need to
amazing.
talk about what you've been through. You just look at each other and you know.
Absolutely. And standing on the balcony and watching this march past in years gone by, it was always a great pleasure, not just to see the whole panoply of people, but to be able to pick out so many old friends amongst them.
There's always the burden of command and leadership.
That's the thing also that me at least, tend to kind of forget is as much as I'm finding this emotional and wonderful and in some cases amazing, like watching that one gentleman with the two canes, just like they said, just staying with the rest of his group there, and then he's the one who hands the wreath. So he takes one of his canes off, and he's struggling with just one cane, so he can hand excuse me, just it's just little things like that just always seem to hit me. But they made a point of that one guy, Lord, whatever, I forget. I'm sorry, I'm not really paying attention to what the names are, but Lord something. Alistair is the one guy talking. Lord is Lord. Anyway, they'll say it again, maybe. I don't know. But he made a great point as he saw a bunch of his friends, and lots of times these people don't talk. They've lost connection with each other, or this is the one time a year that they see all these people because they can't get around. They live far away. It's not easy for them to go to maybe reunions that they have throughout the year or events or whatever. This is the one time, and that they get to see their buddies again. Gosh dang it. I didn't think I'd need a tissue for this, but push it down. It's just awesome. And hearing from a lot of you who've been to this, and some of you who have told me, don't worry, I'm not going to say any names, but some of you have told me that, you've been many years you refused to go, but you've chosen to go last year or whatever, and it was like a really great experience, and you then wished you'd gone the years before. But the good thing is now you'll be continuing on to go if you can. It's hard. You're living way up in the north or somewhere else in the world for that matter, and it's hard to get here. Or you have a disability and it's hard but when you get here, you see people you haven't seen in years, and it just brings back memories. You have a great laugh, good and bad, and it's just all those things that I appreciate about this. Yes, walking past the Cenotaph is the coup de grace. It's the pinnacle of the day, but all the time mingling before and after, in a pub, if you will, I find that's what's really going to stay with you, and it's because you're with people who get you. They know what you've been through because they were through it, and you guys were there together. It's just the shared experiences. So we just see just this snippet of time of you walking past, of these people walking past the Cenotaph doing their thing. But what we're not seeing is the hours before and after that y'all get to really, reminisce, pay your respects to your lost brothers and sisters. And I'm sorry. I just find that there's so many stories within a story, and so many individuals here that have come collectively together for this particular part of the day. But before and after is what probably will stick with most of them forever.
Ship from Whitehall during conflict. You've faced that and the burden of responsibility of knowing about young lives brought to their end. How did you get to hear about casualties, and how did that affect you?
Well, I got to hear about them through the standard reporting system, which alerts people very quickly indeed.
Is there a certain order that the Reeds have to go in?
Conflict,
or
that
can they
people are going to die and people are going to be wounded.
Going in line,
that's inherent in the very nature
how
of
they're
war.
received.
The critical thing for anyone in a senior position is to reflect on whether or not this country is gaining sufficient strategic advantage for the price its people are paying in blood and suffering. That's a terrible calculus to have to make, but it's absolutely essential. We can't spend young lives to no avail. It has to be about something important for the country.
Yes. 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 That's all I'm going to say. Yes. I agree. I do notice the reefs look like they just get laid as they are presented to them in order that they show up, but the special ones have their own, look like their own row that they get set in. The colored ones there, they kind of have their own row.
It's 12 o'clock. You're watching Sky News and the coverage of Remembrance Sunday here at the Cenotaph and the March Past of Veterans. I'm joined in the studio by Marshal of the Royal Air Force, the Lord Stirrup, who was Chief of the Defence Staff. And we're looking at the character and the enthusiasm of all these veterans. And it is, I think, for each of them, poignant and important to make the pilgrimage here to leave their wreaths.
It is, and also, of course, you and I both understand that people who've been involved in conflict and have seen its challenges and sometimes its horrors find it enormously difficult to communicate that to people who've not been in the same situation. So being able to gather with old comrades, with fellow veterans, enables them to be able to talk about their experiences in a way that they can't more generally. And talking about them is extremely important, particularly in terms of mental health. I remember my own father, who was in the SS during the Second World War, was enormously proud of his association, but he would rarely, if ever, talk even to me about his experiences. But when he went to the reunions, my goodness, then the tongue
Look at the smile on his face. That's
Yes.
priceless
Well,
right there.
I think that's one of the joys about this, is that for the rest of the day, once they have played their part and done their duty, that proud veteran there hugging close the wreath on behalf of his compatriots. He's not going to give that away to anybody until the time is right. But later, he will be with all his friends in the pubs and bars. And you know, you were talking about people who haven't served in the armed forces, but how important they are too, because they have traditionally, the British and wider Commonwealth communities have always been so supportive to servicemen and women and have understood that this is an important occasion, particularly those who lose limbs in battle and who need so much more help. And there being that fine veteran being supported by one of the end pensioners himself, just showing how everyone comes together.
Oh.
And of course, it's not just military veterans, as we saw in the gathering around the Cenotaph earlier.
So
the
cool.
civilian
I mean, it's
services
just everybody.
were all represented, but it goes wider than that. In conflict, we have seen, of course, that it's civilian populations
Family
very
member
often that
there.
suffer, and it's their endurance and their resilience and their resolve that is so important in making sure that that we achieve the right outcome in any conflict.
Much respect, buddy.
The music, the Army, the Navy and the Air Force, played by the band of His Majesty's Royal Marines and the Royal Air Force bands.
Yeah, I love how it's juxtaposed to, you know, the current service members. Excuse me. Standing there. They don't move for the whole time, which is just awesome. I love the umbrellas and the bowler hats. I love it. I got nothing. I don't know who they are.
Some of the songs that we're hearing and remembering have words that certainly Lord Stirrup and I are not going to mention on air, but they were great songs to raise the morale of different generations. And we look at all those campaign medals so proudly worn on the left side. Many people wear campaign medals with that smart eyes left, campaign medals on the right-hand side. And of course, that is to represent members of their families who in previous generations have played their part. And it's a good tradition. It's good to see. Each of the organisations here come the regiments of the King's Royal Hussars with their special cherry trousers, colour that was taken from the livery of Queen Victoria's husband, who came from Saxe-Coburg, Gotha, and gave that colour to his own regiment, and there they are, wearing their cherry trousers.
One of
That's
the
awesome.
great skills military personnel have always possessed is writing irregular and unauthorised lyrics to existing songs.
I think you and I are going to have a bit of a sing-song later on when no one's listening and the microphones are turned off. I think one of the most moving moments I remember when I was learning to be a broadcaster was when I was with Tom Fleming, who taught me. And he watched as the blind came past, the blind from the Second World War. And he'd left it quiet for a moment, and then they gave their salute to the cenotaph, and he said very simply, they turn their heads in salute to a cenotaph they cannot see. And again, in just a few words, he encapsulated. Falklands veterans, I recognise that scarf. Each of those scarves were knitted by people in the Falklands and sent to all
wow.
the veterans, which was marvellous. I mean, I've got mine.
That's awesome. But the quote he was talking about, the blind, they salute the cenotaph they cannot see. That just, bam, hits you deep. The Falkland veterans, very cool with the scarf.
Wear it today, only it really is very warm to wear. But what an act of love by the people of the Falkland Islanders.
Marvellous. And of course, given the climate there, they would know all about the need for warm scarves.
Yeah. True that.
So this parade marches past the Cenotaph. They then turn right in Parliament Square and head down Birdcage Walk and into Horse Guards, where His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, on behalf of the King, is taking the final salute from each of these groups. The Army Air Corps represented there, who mostly flew helicopters
Yeah, I remember in
in
years
battle
past
and supported the
Prince
Army
Edward.
in its air operations. And so for the Prince of Wales, on behalf of the King and of the generation that took part in difficult operations like Afghanistan and Iraq, which of course you took part in yourself from a position of oversight. There are words coming to my mind, but anyway, wherever you are at home, have a giggle and honour these marvellous veterans.
Is he talking about the song and the naughty lyrics again? I think I've heard a few that use this. Some of you have sent me some videos of the altered version.
Undoubtedly, following the National Act of Remembrance, this march past by 10,000 veterans or supporters of what those veterans and servicemen and indeed civilian services have done to protect this nation is the highlight of this extraordinary day. And that fine in pensioner with his Falkland Islands scarf round his neck marching past. And I've been joined for this very moving event by Marshal of the Royal Air Force, the Lord Stirrup. As we come to the conclusion of our live coverage, what thoughts do you have?
Well, it's been wonderful to see these 10,000 march past in what you have characterised as a national act of remembrance, but we should perhaps remember that this is just London and that there are similar acts of various scales going on up and down the country. So this truly is a national event, and it makes one proud to be part of a nation that considers the service of all these people to be so important that it remembers it annually on this day.
As the Marshal of the Royal Air Force says, you know, wherever you are, whatever village you're in, whatever nation in the Commonwealth you may be watching from, or whether you're on holiday in another part of the world, but just want to be a part of this moment of remembrance. We hope that in being with the King, the royal family, and political and Commonwealth representatives, you feel you have played your part in remembering the sacrifice, in bearing in mind those who carry the wounds, and in affirming the veterans and those who stand by to serve tomorrow on our behalf. From Whitehall, thank you very much indeed for being a part of this national act of remembrance.
Alistair, thank you to you as well for your commentary there alongside Lord Jock Stirrup. I've just got a few questions for you, Alistair, because you've been a part of this for some 30 years now, I believe, commentating on it. And I imagine it's never anything less than poignant, powerful, and as we're hearing that music now as well, rousing too.
Well, you're right. I have now been commentating for 30 years of this great event. And it is actually the first time I've commentated when I have not been serving myself. I've completed 45 and a half years of service in uniform, and I miss it all like mad. But in my last job as governor of Edinburgh Castle, I had the privilege of holding within the fortress the Scottish National Memorial. And in it are the books that hold the names of every Scot who has lost his or her life in battle. And while I was there, Corporal Gillen's name was added. She was killed
Those Gurkhas?
by insurgents in Iraq, and we all remembered that for her service to the Scottish and North Irish Yeomanry. But I always remembered, and I always took my guests to see the names of the 4 soldiers I had trained with, not least my platoon sergeant, Sergeant Simeon, my orderly, Guardsman Jim Reynolds, and also Guardsman David Malcolmson and Guardsman Tambini. For me, they are always
Can't tell.
etched as these fine Gurkhas marching past hold their own names etched in their memories. But this cenotaph, whenever I pass it, is the place where, along with all of you, I can place the memories of all the thoughts I have in that empty tomb held aloft above the traffic of London at the heart
love the
of our
hats.
great capital city. And I have always enjoyed the privilege of doing this. And I am but one of so many in this river of veterans.
It's
has the
good to
gift of
remember
gab,
and be
I'll tell you
reminded,
that.
Alistair, that you're not
a way
just
with
an
words.
observer. You have been a participant. You are a major general, and we caught the shot of you at the start there. And I have to be honest, I hadn't seen you with all those medals previously, which is a reminder that you have served and served for a long time. You mentioned your service in the Falklands War as well. So when you're pausing at 11 o'clock and falling silent, what goes through your mind?
Well, I think the 4 soldiers who I trained, and my very first day in the armed forces was when I turned up to Purbright to be trained, and the first person I met was Sergeant John Simeon, and I had been driven to my training by, this is going to be very embarrassing, I'm never going to live this down, by my nanny's son-in-law, who very sweetly drove me there. And while I was talking to the sergeant, he got my suitcases out of the car and asked where he should put them. And I asked the sergeant, he said, inside, turn left, second bed on the right. So off he went and did that. And he came out and said, is there anything else I can do? Now, he never did anything for me normally, but it did look to Sergeant Simeon as though I lived a life like this. And when my supportive driver drove away, Sergeant Simeon told me to go and get my suitcases. He pointed at a tree at the end of a field and said, go and run around that tree with your suitcases, shouting, I will not get my butler to carry my kit.
No way.
So he was a huge influence on me, and to then be serving with him when he was
Oh my
shot,
God.
mortally wounded and killed in the Falklands War is a memory with humour and with respect that I always recall. He did, thank goodness, cut me down to size right at the beginning of my
Right
military
then.
service.
Wow, what a story.
That's a fantastic story. I'm so sure stories like that are replicated by the thousand amongst the men and women marching today, and the many more watching on and remembering. But for now, thank you very much indeed.
Incredible.
Well, a Remembrance service has also been held today at the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire. Our correspondent, Fraser Maud, is there for us now. And Fraser, I imagine, well, just like we were seeing in London and in Cardiff.
Yeah, I've seen this event at the Arboretum, and it's pretty awesome. I think the one I saw had Princess Anne there. I don't know if she still does, if she does it every year, but that was cool. I don't know how much more of it there was left, but I wish maybe they could have shown the whole thing, maybe. Hold on one sec. Let's see if I can find something. I wanted to show you this before we ended today's video, but this is, I think this was on a different channel, and thank you. And I watched some of their broadcasts. There's no narration. I actually enjoy listening to Alistair. I had no idea he was all those things. Falklands veteran, so on and so forth. Had no idea. Just thought he was broadcast guy. That's awesome. And I watched a bunch of the march past from this this channel. Telegraph, I think, is what this was. And it was hard for me to. I mean, I obviously didn't know who's who, so I'm just, But this, at the very end, I have to show you, was amazing. And it just kind of encapsulates the day. I don't know if anybody's seen this. If you have, thank you for watching it again with me. I just find it to be very amazing. Everybody's already gone by. This is kind of like the last one. Guy, it looks like he's in a wheelchair. Look at this. This doesn't tell you what this day means to these people. It's just amazing. Look at that. Incredible. Incredible. It's so cool that they allowed him to do that. The whole thing is just so moving. Sorry we didn't get the whole march past with every single one. I mean, they said it was over 10,000. That's just awesome. And I hope it just keeps getting bigger. I hope some of the veterans out there who have always resisted and or aren't able to, I hope next year they're able to somehow work it out to where they can get there. I would feel, now I have zero experience in war, so I have no idea what these men and women went through and or have to go through daily. But I can only imagine that, seeing, at least from what I've been hearing, and this is the only reason why I would base this assumption on, is the feedback that I get from a lot of you who say the feelings you get of seeing your friends again, seeing people who've gone through the same experiences that you have, you can open up and relate, and it's very therapeutic in a way, to be able not to tell stories of awful, nothing like that, but just being able to just talk to somebody who has shared life experiences and or someone you haven't seen in years, and reconnecting and talking about the good times, that you all had, sharing a laugh. Of that story that Alistair was talking about was awesome, that he thought it was his butler. Just stuff like that. I think stories like that are going on, or have gone on this day, from the early mornings till the late night, probably in the pubs, and it's just replicated throughout the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth countries, and all the towns and villages and cities that have these march pasts. And it's just, for an American looking at it, I just find it to be some of the greatest things. This weekend, watching how you all do it is just brings up a lot of emotions for me. And I have family members who've served, but we don't have a cenotaph. We don't have, well, that's my story. I'm sure it's different with others, but I just find this is a way that I can think about them when I watch this event. So I have no plans to stop watching it year in, year out, even long after this channel's gone. I just find it to be very comforting to see these people out there year in and year out. I just find it's amazing. Hope everybody's happy, healthy, and safe. Thanks so much for coming. Just wonderful. Have a great day, and we'll see each other later. All right, bye-bye.
Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark. And he's from